What if I told you that everything you thought you knew about the Passion of the Christ is only the beginning? That the story of Jesus doesn't just start with the crucifixion, but with a cosmic battle that predates humanity itself? If you're ready to go deeper, beyond history, beyond the human world, and into realms you've never imagined, then stay with me, because what comes next will change the way you see this story forever. I believe that to truly tell this story in the way it deserves, you have to begin far earlier than most people expect, long before history, long before humanity, and even before the world itself. You have to go back to what many religious traditions describe as the fall of the angels. This idea is rooted in ancient texts, particularly within Christian theology, where passages like Isaiah 14:12 and Revelation 12:7-9 are often interpreted as symbolic accounts of a rebellion in heaven. According to these interpretations, Lucifer, once described as a being of immense beauty and authority, led a revolt against God, resulting in a cosmic conflict that ended with his expulsion from heaven along with a portion of the angels. Some traditions suggest that as many as 1/3 of the angels fell during this rebellion, a figure derived from imagery in the book of Revelation. This is not just mythology for many believers, it is the foundation of a larger narrative about good and evil, order and chaos. It represents the moment when harmony fractured, when a perfect realm was disrupted by pride and defiance. And importantly, it sets the stage for everything that follows. Because once that fall occurs, the concept of evil is no longer abstract. It becomes active, present, and influential within creation. That's why this story cannot simply begin on earth. It doesn't start with human history or even with the birth of Christ. It begins in another realm entirely, one that exists beyond space and time as we understand it. Theologically, heaven is often described not as a physical place, but as a state of perfect unity with the divine. And yet, within that perfection, something unimaginable occurred: a rebellion. To truly understand the weight of what comes later, the crucifixion, the resurrection, you have to first understand this descent. Because in many interpretations, hell is not just a place of punishment, but a consequence of separation from divine presence. It is described in various ways across religious texts, as fire, as darkness, as isolation. The Gospel of Matthew refers to it as outer darkness, while other passages describe it as a place prepared for the devil and his angels. So when we talk about descending into darkness, into chaos, into hell itself, we're not just speaking metaphorically. We're referring to a theological framework that has been studied, debated, and believed for thousands of years. This is where the story truly begins, not with humanity, but with a fracture in the fabric of creation itself. Hell, Satan, the rebellion. These are not just dramatic elements. They are, for many, the starting point of the entire narrative. The moment that set everything into motion, and ultimately led to the events that would unfold on Earth. It has been over 20 years since Mel Gibson released a film that Hollywood never wanted to exist. Back in 2004, The Passion of the Christ faced resistance at nearly every level. Major studios refused to finance or distribute it, forcing Gibson to fund the project himself, reportedly investing around $30 million of his own money, with an additional $15 million spent on marketing. At the time, this was seen as an enormous personal risk, especially for a film shot entirely in ancient languages like Aramaic, Latin, and Hebrew, something virtually unheard of in modern cinema. Critics pushed back with intensity even before its release. Some labeled it controversial for its graphic depiction of the crucifixion, while others feared it could provoke religious or cultural tensions. Many industry insiders predicted it would fail commercially, arguing that audiences would not connect with a subtitled biblical film centered on such a an emotionally demanding subject. The expectation was clear. This was a project destined to struggle, not succeed. But when the film was finally released, those predictions collapsed almost instantly. The world didn't just watch, it responded in a way few films ever have. Opening on Ash Wednesday, the film drew massive audiences, particularly from faith-based communities, and quickly turned into a global phenomenon. It went on to gross over $600 million worldwide, making it one of the highest-grossing R-rated films in history, and at the time, the highest-grossing independent film ever made. What was expected to be a niche, controversial project became a cultural and cinematic milestone. Churches organized group screenings, discussions spread across media platforms, and audiences debated its meaning, its message, and its impact. Whether praised or criticized, the film was impossible to ignore. It didn't just succeed, it reshaped expectations about what religious films could achieve at the global box office. And now, after more than 2 decades of anticipation, speculation, and development, Mel Gibson is returning to that world once again. The Resurrection of the Christ is a sequel that has taken more than 2 decades to come to life, a project shaped by time, persistence, and an almost relentless creative ambition. Reports indicate that nearly 8 years were spent on the screenplay alone, with Mel Gibson working closely with collaborators to refine a story that could match, if not surpass, the emotional and spiritual weight of the original film. For Gibson, this is not just another continuation. He has openly described it as the most ambitious project he has ever attempted, both in scale and in narrative depth. And when you begin to understand what this film is aiming to explore, that statement starts to make complete sense. Because this isn't a straightforward sequel. It doesn't simply pick up where the last film ended and move forward in a linear way. Instead, it seeks to expand the story in ways that reach far beyond the immediate aftermath of the crucifixion. Early discussions and interviews suggest a narrative that moves across time, space, and even realms of existence, touching not only on the resurrection itself, but on the spiritual consequences surrounding it. This includes reflections on the nature of life, death, redemption, and the unseen battle between good and evil that exists beyond the physical world. In many ways, the resurrection becomes not just an event, but the center of a much larger cosmic story. Naturally, this raises important questions. What exactly will the film focus on? How far will it go beyond the biblical accounts that most audiences are familiar with? And perhaps most importantly for longtime viewers, what happens to the face of that story? Jim Caviezel, the actor whose portrayal of Jesus in The Passion of the Christ left a lasting impression on audiences around the world, became deeply associated with the role. His performance, marked by intense physical endurance and emotional depth, helped define the film's identity. Over the years, Caviezel himself repeatedly expressed interest in returning, even confirming in multiple interviews that discussions were ongoing. However, more recent developments have introduced uncertainty. Reports and speculation suggest that the direction of the new film, particularly its expanded scope and the passage of time, may require a different approach to casting. While there has been no universally confirmed final statement that definitively closes the door, the possibility of recasting has become a major point of discussion. And if that decision holds, it presents an enormous challenge. Because stepping into that role now is not simply about acting. It's about carrying the weight of a performance that has already shaped audience perception for over 2 decades. Whoever takes on that responsibility will inevitably be compared, analyzed, and measured against a portrayal that many consider iconic. And that raises the final question. If Caviezel does not return, who could possibly step into a role of such magnitude? And how will audiences respond to a new face at the center of such a deeply personal and spiritual story? The story begins where the Passion of the Christ left its audience, in the silence that follows the crucifixion, 3 days later, at the moment that, for billions of believers, represents the turning point of human history. In the New Testament accounts, this is the point at which the empty tomb is discovered, a moment recorded across all 4 Gospels and central to Christian faith, symbolizing victory over death and the fulfillment of prophecy. But what this film sets out to do is far more than simply depict that moment. It aims to explore everything surrounding it, both seen and unseen. This is not a straightforward continuation, nor is it just the next chapter in a familiar narrative. According to Mel Gibson and his co-writers, the screenplay pushes far beyond traditional storytelling. Gibson himself described it as an acid trip, a phrase that has sparked curiosity and debate. He didn't mean it as something random or surreal without purpose, but rather as a reflection of how expansive and layered the story has become. The resurrection in this vision is not treated as a single event. It is the center of a vast, interconnected narrative that stretches across time, memory, and even spiritual dimensions. Early insights into the project suggest a structure that may move nonlinearly, weaving together different moments, before, during, and after the resurrection, while also exploring theological concepts that are rarely visualized on screen. This could include the nature of the soul, the harrowing of hell, a concept in Christian theology describing Christ's descent into the real, of the dead, and the unseen spiritual conflict between good and evil. These elements are drawn from centuries of theological interpretation, not just the biblical text itself, which helps explain why the script has taken so many years to develop. In that sense, the film is not simply trying to retell a known story. It is attempting to visualize ideas that are often abstract, symbolic, and deeply complex. And that is where its scale truly expands beyond what audiences typically expect from a biblical film. Instead of remaining grounded purely in historical events, it reaches into the metaphysical, aiming to present a story that operates on both a human and cosmic level at the same time. In fact, the film doesn't even begin with the resurrection. It reaches back far beyond that, before Jerusalem, before the cross, before human history as we understand it. The opening is set in heaven itself, at the moment many theological traditions describe as the Fall of Lucifer. This idea, often drawn from interpretations of passages like Isaiah 14 and Revelation 12, speaks of a rebellion in the divine realm, an uprising led by a being once associated with light, cast down along with other angels in what is often symbolically described as a cosmic war. Some interpretations even suggest that a third of the angels fell, marking what many believe to be the origin of evil within creation. By beginning here, the film shifts its scope from a historical narrative to something far more expansive, a story that starts with a fracture in the spiritual order itself. This moment is often seen as the point where harmony gave way to division, where light and darkness became opposing forces within the larger story of existence. It's not just a backdrop, it's a foundation. Because once that rupture occurs, everything that follows, human history, suffering, redemption, unfolds within the shadow of that original rebellion. Mel Gibson has indicated that what they've written goes far beyond a single, contained narrative. The script is layered with theological themes, symbolic imagery, and interconnected timelines that simply cannot be compressed into one film without losing its depth. That's why what was originally conceived as a single sequel has now expanded into 2 full-length features. This decision reflects not just ambition, but necessity. The scale of the story demands space to breathe. When combined with the Passion of the Christ, these 2 films will complete a trilogy, one that begins with suffering, expands into cosmic origins, and ultimately centers on resurrection and redemption. It's an approach that transforms the story from a singular historical event into a sweeping, multi-dimensional narrative that spans from the beginning of creation to its spiritual consequences. But before anything else, there is one major development that has profoundly impacted fans, and for many, it's the most emotional part of this entire story. Jim Caviezel is not returning. The actor who portrayed Jesus in the original The Passion of the Christ delivered a performance that went far beyond acting. During production, he endured intense physical hardship, reportedly suffering injuries such as a dislocated shoulder, hypothermia during filming, and even being struck by lightning while on set. These experiences became part of the film's legacy, reinforcing the authenticity and emotional weight of his portrayal. Caviezel didn't just play the role, he lived it in a way that resonated deeply with audiences. Over the years, he spoke openly about how the experience transformed his life, strengthening his faith and redefining his purpose. For many viewers around the world, his face became inseparable from the image of Jesus on screen. His performance wasn't just remembered, it was internalized, revisited, and held onto as something deeply personal. As recently as April 2025, Caviezel himself had publicly indicated that he expected to return for the sequel, which made the sudden shift all the more surprising. Behind the scenes, however, the direction of the project appears to have evolved significantly. With the passage of more than 2 decades since the original film, along with the expanded scope and demanding nature of the new narrative, the decision was made to move forward with a completely new cast. For many fans, this is difficult to accept. Recasting such an iconic role is not just a creative decision, it's a cultural and emotional risk. Caviezel didn't simply portray Jesus. For an entire generation, he became the cinematic embodiment of that figure. His performance is etched into memory, making the idea of someone else stepping into that role feel almost unimaginable. And that's what makes this transition one of the most challenging aspects of the film's development. Because replacing him isn't just about finding another actor, it's about redefining an image that millions have carried with them for over 20 years. That responsibility now falls to finish actor Jarkko Lahti, a performer recognized for his work in historical dramas such as The Last Kingdom and Vikings, Valhalla. While he may not yet be a household name on a global scale, his background in intense, character-driven roles set in gritty, period settings suggests a level of discipline and emotional range that this role will demand. Stepping into a story of this magnitude requires more than just talent. It demands presence, restraint, and the ability to convey profound meaning with minimal dialogue, something that defined the original film. Now, however, Lahti finds himself facing a challenge unlike anything most actors will ever encounter. He is not simply taking on a role, he is stepping into a legacy. The portrayal of Jesus in The Passion of the Christ left a lasting imprint on audiences worldwide, and any new interpretation will inevitably be compared to what came before. Every expression, every movement, every moment on screen will be examined, discussed, and measured against a performance that has remained culturally significant for over 2 decades. For an actor who is still emerging on the international stage, this is both an extraordinary opportunity and an immense pressure. If he succeeds, he could redefine the role for a new generation. If he falls short, the criticism will be unavoidable. Either way, there is no middle ground here. This is the kind of role that can shape an entire career, and the world will be watching closely. The complexity of the story also introduces significant practical challenges, particularly when it comes to language. The original film's bold choice to use Aramaic, Latin, and Hebrew added authenticity, immersing audiences in the historical and cultural context of first-century Judea. But this sequel's narrative is far more layered, philosophical, and expansive, moving beyond a single timeline to explore cosmic, theological, and spiritual dimensions. Conveying such depth in ancient languages alone could risk alienating viewers, making the story difficult to follow. For this reason, the filmmakers have chosen to shoot the sequel primarily in English. While some fans may initially view this as a loss of authenticity, it appears to be a conscious and necessary decision. English allows the dialogue and complex themes to be communicated clearly, helping audiences grasp the intricate theological concepts, moral questions, and narrative threads that intertwine throughout the story. Given its non-linear structure, multiple settings, ranging from heavenly realms to earth, and the exploration of abstract spiritual realities, accessibility becomes critical. The choice of language ensures that the story's full emotional, philosophical, and dramatic impact can resonate with a modern global audience, without losing the intensity and gravitas that made the original film so powerful. Production on the resurrection of the Christ is already well underway. Filming began in August 2025 at Rome's iconic Cinecittà Studios, the very same studios where the Passion of the Christ was brought to life over 20 years ago. This historic location has long been celebrated as the heart of Italian cinema, hosting legendary productions from Fellini to contemporary epics, making it a fitting home for a project of such scale and ambition. In addition to the studio work, the production has spread across southern Italy, capturing the striking landscapes and ancient architecture of locations such as Matera, Genosa, Gravina, and Altamura. Malta, with its rich cinematic history and stunning Mediterranean vistas, is also being used to enhance the film's visual palette. The filmmakers are taking full advantage of these locations to create an immersive, almost tactile sense of place that spans both historical and spiritual realms. One of the most remarkable aspects of this production is the use of IMAX cameras, a first for a biblical film of this magnitude. Shooting in IMAX allows for unprecedented visual clarity, scale, and detail, ensuring that every moment, whether it's a sweeping landscape, an intimate character expression, or a supernatural event, is captured with cinematic intensity. This technical choice signals a level of ambition rarely seen in religious or historical films, and suggests that the filmmakers are aiming to create not just a movie, but an experience that fully envelops the audience. The scale, both in terms of storytelling and visuals, marks this project as one of the most audacious undertakings in the genre's history. Finally, even the release strategy reflects the film's profound spiritual and thematic weight. The first installment is scheduled to premiere on Good Friday, March 26, 2027, a day that commemorates the crucifixion and is one of the most solemn and significant dates in the Christian calendar. The second part is set for release on Ascension Day, May 6, 2027, a moment that celebrates Christ's ascension into heaven, completing the narrative arc of resurrection and divine triumph. Lining the premieres with these sacred dates, the filmmakers are not only honoring the religious significance of the story, but also creating a cinematic rhythm that mirrors the spiritual journey at the heart of the narrative. The 6-week gap between the two parts allows audiences to reflect on the first film, anticipate the continuation, and experience the story as a deeply resonant, almost ritualistic event, transforming the viewing experience into something more than entertainment, but a modern reflection of faith and devotion. This is far more than just a sequel. It is not merely another film added to the cinematic landscape. It is an ambitious attempt to bring to life one of the most profound and timeless stories ever conceived, a story of faith, sacrifice, and redemption, told on a scale that has never before been attempted in film. From the cosmic origins of evil to the climactic triumph of resurrection, the narrative spans realms, generations, and dimensions, inviting audiences to experience a story that is as vast in its vision as it is intimate in its emotional impact. If you appreciate content like this and want to stay updated on every development, make sure to subscribe. Your support truly makes a difference and helps this channel continue to grow, bringing you closer to the stories behind the stories. This is far more than a sequel. It's an attempt to tell one of the most profound stories ever conceived, on a scale that has never been attempted before, from cosmic rebellion to human redemption. If you want to stay on top of every development about the resurrection of the Christ, every cast reveal, behind-the-scenes look, and cinematic breakdown, make sure to subscribe now and hit the notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single detail of this epic journey. It's a story that will redefine what faith, cinema, and storytelling can achieve.